Yesterday, we had some pretty quick games. 2 3-0s. No fun. No fun. Well, it's still fun. It's Overwatch. We're here with Contenders Korea, the Fall Series, Day 2. And we're hoping for a little bit longer of a day. 2 more games coming at you. That's myself and LaFawn giving you all the action.
And, I mean, what better a way to kind of just ease us into the rest of the group stages, which I have to admit is not a lot of time left, right? We are in a bit of a truncated season overall, so as we get through today, less than half the season left. So that's going to be an exciting stuff to get through as we get started. Let's talk about the games right off the rip.
That's not true. There's 2 weeks on.
2 weeks?
Grand Finals week and next week.
Yeah, that's halfway.
Right, but there's 2 more days. There's 4 days. That's not half. Right. That's a quarter, LaFawn. Get your math right. You were struggling with math earlier today. Into
the games off for the rip first, and you know, let's just get into this into the teams that we have at our disposal, because this is good. You know, you talk about interesting games. We already saw one of these teams play yesterday, and now they get to go against arguably one of the top or the expected top teams in this group. And so Runway kind of being expended for Lemix.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it is a pretty tight season here. We do have just a few short games each team will play. Well, I guess for Lemix, half their regular season will be done. So you got that at least, because they only get 4 games in the group. So you get just a little bit out of that one, LaFawn. But in general, no.
All right. Well, let's zoom out. Let's zoom out. I'm getting roasted today. Group stage is in, you know, as we get set. This is going to be really interesting talking about it, though, because placing first in your group, both A and B, is critical, because you get your bypass immediately into the playoffs. You get seeded into the bracket. Critically, though, you get to bypass that first round, so you immediately head into the second round. And as we can see right there, that single elimination bracket, group 3 and 4 is that first place position. Everyone else will have to play through round 1. And of course, after all is said and done, grand final will happen at the end of the season on LAN in the WDG Esports studio to crown our champion here for the 2023 Fall Series of Korea. And Paul, I mean, you know, very exciting this season because we have returning teams from the Overwatch League knockouts now playing back in Contenders, and so I mean the status of play has been elevated, I think, compared to even say the last season of Contenders.
Certainly. I mean, yesterday it was our ex-knockout teams facing off against each other and a couple of WDG Open teams facing off. Poker Face very much getting the better of Panthera. Panthera looked a little lost. Hopefully they're going to take a day or two off, readjust to the new meta. We are on a live patch. Keep in mind, folks, very Zarya heavy, but teams are still settling in what they might like to play. And we saw that in Panthera yesterday. JNGK and Lemix, though, they were full sending it on the Zarya. No surprises. The WDG Open was also on this current patch, so they're pretty comfortable on that. Gonna have to be very comfortable, Lemix, as they didn't do too hot yesterday. And now, like you said, going up against a very scary team. Dreamers, you could argue, are going to be the best, maybe second best. They did lose to Poker Face. What scarier teams in this entire season rolling in today? And this is our first, knockout team versus WDG Open matchup.
Yeah, and then, of course, later on today in that second game of our doubleheader, FM takes on Revival, 2 open teams once more. Though FM, having been around a little bit as a roster, made some changes. Revival stepping forward, trying to make some noise themselves. I do believe that was the 4th and 5th seed coming in from the WDG Opens. But ahead to our first game of the day, Dreamers versus Lemix FC. Dreamers a bit of a fan favorite, it must be said, due to their tenure and their experience, the stuff that they were able to accomplish in Contenders, in the Owl knockouts, and how this team kind of performed. I mean, I remember when Dreamers was, in about a year ago, where they were kind of struggling through Contenders. All of a sudden, they turn it around and become one of the foremost performers, from the Contender squads. As we take a look at the roster, and keen-eyed among you will notice that there is a new tank player.
Yeah, absolutely. Liga is off, rumored to heading to some greener pastures. We'll see where Liga ends up, but Jasmine stepping in here to fill some of the off-tank roles. We've talked about Jasmine a lot in Contenders Korea. One of the newer tanks when it comes to he's not Dreamer, he's not Liga. He's been playing at the Contenders level for a little under a year now, but he's got a really wide hero pool. So I think this is smart pickup for Dreamers. It's intelligent for them to bring him in. On the other side of things, we saw Lemix yesterday. You'll recognize them. I mean, across the aisle in the tank role, Grace. It was some heavy talk last week at the seeding show. We'll 3-0 sweep everybody. Didn't win a map yesterday. So not the best start for the trash talk, but it's still fun to watch this team play.
And I think, we talk about Jasmine being a sort of do-it-all tank, one of the new generation of tank players in Overwatch. I think Grace is of that ilk as well, right? And, while historically has been sort of that off-tank role, I think has expanded the hero pool to include, the Junker Queen we saw Zarya yesterday as well from Grace. Now the question is, can you put it all together? It doesn't get easier from Lemix, and unfortunately for them, this is, we joked a little bit earlier about the season kind of running a runway. This is almost a must-win for Lemix, or at least, at the very least, you need to put on a solid performance against an expected top team who are reintroducing a new tank, right, in a new meta, and a meta that you've already had competitive playtime on. If you lose this one in the 3-0 fashion, it's feeling a little bit awkward for Lemix heading into, the back half of their group play.
I mean, it's already feeling a little bit awkward when you look at Group B. I mean, you have Dreamers, who they're going up against today, JNGK, who's the only other WDG Open team, and then Euphoria, who used to go by Rhodes. They rebranded a little bit. And then SPG, Simpressa Gaming. That's a scary group. Lemix, they didn't get the one win against the other WDG Open team. They're not going to have to pull off quite a few upsets, at least 2 out of the 3 for the teams coming back from the knockouts. So they either need this win today, or they need to figure out a way to take down SPG and Euphoria. We're starting it all off on Lijiang Tower. I believe this is where we saw Lemix play yesterday as well. It was admittedly somewhat close on the 2 rounds that we saw here, but they failed to put it together.
Well, I mean, the big thing, too, is that they just were a little too slow with their fight approach yesterday. And sure, while the points were close, the map was close, and I did make that argument yesterday, the big problem is that they didn't take very many fights. So a lot of the times we actually on the first round, right, it came down to basically the first ultimate fight, meaning where the first one where every team has multiple resources available for them, happened in last fight, because of the fact that Lemix really weren't doing a whole lot to get forward in that round. So looking for a much higher tempo from Lemix today.
And as we load in here, I'm really looking at the DPS core of Lemix to play something stable. No surprises from Dreamers. They're playing what exactly we expect to be the meta. Got Top Dragon on the Genji. Ooh, Top Dragon Genji is very fun to watch. I'm excited for that one.
And I mean, sad Sojourn too.
A very different approach here. Cyrus just gets bodied by Top Dragon.
Ooh, that is not an auspicious start for Lemix, it must be said.
Oh my word, Top Dragon.
And I mean, listen, Top Dragon. Yeah, the thing about Top Dragon is this is a player that you and I talked about in A-Sides of Korea way back when. Right,
like a year ago.
Yeah, coming back into the Al season, you know, that just is about to end shortly. That he was a player that we expected to see in the Overwatch League. So this is you know a performance that is expected of his caliber, and with that, Dreamers easily take first capture.
Yeah, there would have been quite a few teams, in my opinion, that could have used Top Dragon during their rougher year this year, but that's neither here nor there. Instead, we got to focus on Lemix. Trying to get back into the mix here. It's hard to push across that bridge with Orisa. No Lucio either. And meanwhile, across, Donna does overextend. And actually, Top Dragon not able to pin that down either. Everybody throwing stuff into Amir, but Amir getting pocketed makes that easy. Now with an Amp Matrix, Lemix get across the bridge. And Dreamers, I think they played with their food a little bit too much. This food kicked back. Sure, Missing gets one with an Amp Matrix, but I think he's going to wish he saved that.
Actually, hold on. This is the spirit. Baptiste? Okay. Oh. With Imperial coming in, a very young player, by the way. Imperial, very, very young. Comes in with a cleanup on the sports. What happens there, Emperor is actually the focus of the last fight, but the healing pylon from Osiris kept in the corner, sneaky good at healing. If you don't take it down, it will be able to pocket through, and that's exactly what happened, and the reason why Lemix are able to get percentage. That being said, the turnaround is rough, because that's an uncontested first pick.
Nice start from Stad. Stad back on the Sojourn, too. Stad's been playing pretty solidly on the hit scan all year, but this is, I mean, you know, a lot of these DPS players in Contenders Korea. Last year, they all had to play and learn Sojourn to get into Contenders in the first place. No surprise that Stad is able to get off to a good start here. Lemix, they managed to get up to 38%. Not too bad, but these staggers at the very end of it here. Grace, just throw yourself off the map, buddy. You're not making it out, and you're not accomplishing much else.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about in terms of the tempo play that we need to see from Lemix. They're just taking fights way too slowly. Not resetting there is going to put Dreamers at about 60% when this next fight happens. And so Dreamers winning it would put them into last fight territory with a staggered contest. And make no mistake, this is going to be a very difficult fight for Lemix to actually close through. Sound barrier for sustain. You obviously have the Dragon Blade. And even if that accomplishes nothing, the Graviton Surge has no response on the opposing side.
Whoa, Top Dragon. You need to be a little bit more careful. Got down to 9 HP there before peeling out. A little bit careful. There's a grab. And it's just, it lands the slaughter at this point. I don't know if the blade was necessary. The Amp Matrix and blade certainly were not both necessary. But, I mean, with 81% already on the board, hard to imagine Dreamers don't convert this.
And this is that stagger stuff once more. I mean, the round's over, right? It's a formality at this point, barring a miracle heroics.
You don't think the Molten Core can clutch this and kill 5?
I don't think he even gets to the point, I'll be honest with you.
Hey, Overdrive, don't... Oh, okay, well, he's walking away now, so no, maybe not. Although the Molten Core is out, and Overtime did get triggered. Grace isn't going to be around to see it through, though, and that Amp Matrix is not in the ideal position. Nah, okay. 138. One pretty solid punish from Lemix, but otherwise, Dreamers in pretty comfortable control.
This is the expected performance from round number 1, and you know we've been critical about Lemix in terms of their fight selection, their tempo, but make no mistake about it, Dreamers is the favorite team here, and if anything, I think we could be a little bit harder on Dreamers for the fact that they lost that fight because it was a greedy, aggressive play, right?
No, for sure.
And it's not something we've seen from them in the past either, right? When they were playing in the Al knockouts, this was not a style they were not willing to play with their food. They just played very cool, very calm, very collected, and I would like to see more of that from them in this contender season, especially because the expectation is for them to make playoffs.
I think there's an argument to be made. They feel very confident about this match, but there's also, I do want to point out, that is a criticism we had of Top Dragon's Genji, specifically last year, when, you know, it was like his Genji versus O2 Blast in finals at points. It goes a little bit far a lot of the times, and can have a habit of overextending. I'm not going to fault it too much for it in this match, unless it becomes a really big problem. But that's something to keep an eye on for the season when they go up against some of those heavier hitters in their group. Missin's actually the first one down here, and that makes things pretty tricky for Dreamers. They can't really step up to the Bastion that Empire is now rocking without the support of their Baptiste. It's just not enough health to go around, and Lemix got the first cap.
And I mean, this composition that Lemix are running is something that is actually very familiar to all our players because of the Overwatch League setup. That being said, there's the squishy Orisa that is coming to play. The nerfs already making an appearance as Grace is done.
Okay, so not half bad spam there from Soki-chan. Actually, phenomenal shots. I can't call it spam anymore after he gets Top Dragon in the air like that. Ant Matrix 2 keeping Jasmine on his toes, but
without Grace.
Point in Lemix, they don't have a way to really push through this. There we go. Missin finally gone as the grenade does find him. This has been pretty back and forth to start it off, but Lemix are finally going to get some confident percentage.
And one thing here, too, is that for some reason, Dreamers are very content with face-checking a Bastion, which is curious to me because that is where the Bastion excels, right? And you're not even getting the bubbles in play, so it's not a lot of value. But now here's where Lemix gets tough, because again, the Graviton, the Blades coming in, you need to win this fight, and you need to get resources away from Dreamers if you want a real chance to extend this round in your favor.
Oh, man, Taylor just getting around that corner in time, missing. And Empire actually trading there. I've never seen a Baptiste and a Bastion trade. There's the Blade. It forces out the beat. That should give Dreamers some tempo here. If they can get a grab off, Jasmine needs to live. Okay, just barely. Dada's got his back. Amp up those heals, but the beat doesn't drop. Dreamers trying to save that ult. And meanwhile, away.
I don't hate this play from Lemix, though. As you said, it's just the beat left from them, and despite Dreamers spending so much, they haven't confidently won this fight yet.
Yeah, there we go. Now the beat to engage as Dreamers were waiting off their respawns, but they only get the one out of that. Terra Surge doesn't really do much except keep Grace up long enough so that the immortality field can buffer, and Lemix have to lick their wounds.
Yeah, I mean, now you're walking with a Molten Core and Ant Matrix, and this is where I think things can be a little bit more difficult because layering it down the point, all of a sudden, this actually becomes a threat as opposed to the last round where it was sort of a panic ultimate at the end of the round. So keep an eye out here on Soki-chan, who is going to have to be a difference maker.
Whoa, Dada, how'd we end up there with such low health, skirting above him? Oh, and that's an Ant Matrix. Shouldn't peek that one, sad. Look, you guys were just playing on a meta very similar to this. I'm a little bit surprised that you forgot how much damage Bastion does through an Ant Matrix.
I do like that Molten Core, though. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to point at the Bastion and be like, yeah, Molten Core, or sorry, Ant Matrix through, so much damage. But the Molten Core basically ushered everyone into a position where it excelled or added extra value to that. And now, all of a sudden, Lemix, with that pick off onto Sad, going to be about to force last fight territory. And you have to wonder, the Dreamers just feel a little disorganized in their approach, not really focusing on targets.
Yeah, no, this is not an ideal target. Even this grab, I mean, eventually Top Dragon gets there, but most of Dreamers were back, and Top Dragon, again, found before his blade, going a bit too far forward, and Ant Matrix dumped in. That's 2 ults there for Dreamers to try and secure this. They will get the flip over at 93% and push Lemix back, but it's not quite as clean as we might have hoped.
No, it really isn't. And now you have to put through... I mean, even all the damage that you do have, it's going to be against Beat and against the Meteor Strike, or sorry, against the Bastion's Artillery Strike.
Bro, he's got it out for Missin, dude. He does not like Missin in the slightest, especially after that trade. Jasmine already up to high charge too. At least able to mostly dodge out of this Ant Matrix this time. Sad with an overclock, peeking the Ant Matrix Bastion with an overclock. Sad, you are playing with fire.
What's weirder though?
This time he doesn't get burned.
What's weirder though is they actually allowed him to walk away with that. They were like, oh yeah, the overclock is more dangerous than our Ant Matrix Bastion.
Oh, here comes the blade. It's not that dangerous, turns out, as Top Dragon gets put down before he even really gets one slash off, and Jasmine stomped into the dirt by the Terra Surge. Lemix has flipped it back, and there's not much of a chance for Dreamers to really recontest. Here comes a Molten Core just to make sure Missin and Dada can't even trigger overtime.
This is what we were talking about at the top of this round, and to have it proven so quickly is a little disappointing on Dreamer's side. Just unorganized, not really any target focus. The Dragon Blade had no setup whatsoever, and you know, you're coming in, the turret configuration is still available, so you just get gunned down. And I mean, you have to wonder that maybe Dreamers just feeling a little too strong with their approach.
I think part of it as well is also the Enigma. Well, I shouldn't say Enigma, but the fickle situation that is control center, right? I think that the Orisa Bastion composition is going to succeed there more than anywhere else on Lijiang Tower, right? Even here, you can see that Lemix aren't necessarily going to that. We'll see what Sokichin ends up swapping to.
Okay, not having the Bastion though. Okay, not having the Bastion though means that your Zarya can actually get in a lot more aggressively, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So Grace, with that nerf to the Orisa, is going to be a lot more vulnerable here to the damage that can be laid down.
Grace going really far.
Ooh, boy.
I mean, I know Orisa is still pretty tanky despite the nerfs, but you got to be a little bit more careful. Nice shot from him here. Good work there to take down Top Dragon. This has actually been pretty good peel from Lemix. They're just slowly kiting Dreamers who really want to get up and in your face, right? Like Jasmine, Top Dragon, these guys want to go forward and fight you head on. Sad now, completely stuck and just narrowly slides away to safety, but Lemix are going to get first cap again.
That's like the Observer curse on Widow, except it was not it's not a Widow, it's Torbjorn. Sokichin, which is...
Top Dragon back now. Can you find any prod at? I don't really think so. No, this is difficult.
Oh, nice move.
He's been really aggressive with his big flex. That's a beautiful move from Dada, though. I mean, that should just be the floodgate tearing open without the Baptiste. Osiris is going to have a hard time keeping everybody up, and yeah,
Still, Jasmine goes down to essentially an isolated Torbjorn. I mean, Dreamers, they want to play sort of this aggressive setup, but they are not supporting each other on the approach. And the thing is, right, to criticize, we saw a similar gameplay. We saw the Zarya gameplay from Poker Face yesterday, right, where they would have Spit take the majority of the aggression, but it feels like Dreamers just aren't having that second layer of support that needs to keep the Genji once the bubble and the deflect expire.
That's only like the second bubble I've even seen thrown at Top Dragon, and he wasn't really in the mix of danger. Now, Sad very much up in their face. Yeah, gotta hit the shot. There we go. All right, eventually gets MP here. And the rest of Lemix, I mean, that is a bit of an awkward approach, right? Not necessarily the ideal way to deal with a comp that has more vertical mobility than you. Down barrier 2 thrown in from Dreamers. They do lose Jasmine before it really rings out, though. Okay, it'll end up coming out in the wash. Top Dragon's still alive.
Alright, just hide behind the pillar. It'll be fine. I mean, it's not a clean fight. Like, Jasmine is the Zarya's biggest issue is having to reset energy too, right? This is even more disastrous because now when this Graviton comes out, you have to couple the blade rather than using it. Rather just putting damage in from the neutral. And having to use both ultimates is going to mean that last fight territory, Lemix actually will have a window back into this map.
Ooh, there we go. Nice hit from Sokichin. That's going to force Top Dragon to try and pull out the blade and be a playmaker. He can't quite get on top of the Torp, though, and the rest of his team is obliterated by Lemix.
Talking about a window back in. Now Lemix has an opportunity to take the objective, and with the reset on damage and no other ults, defensively or not, right? I mean, for Lemix, you're going to posture Grace to take the brunt of this damage, the Graviton Surge especially, and then you actually have a chance to kind of generate your ult economy back. It's a small window, but it's an opportunity nonetheless.
Taking so much damage, so much! He doesn't get a bubble, he doesn't get any heals, he goes away from the team. Yeesh.
And now Dreamers are caught in somewhat no man's land, right? Like, they're kind of rotating to the point, but they can't actually go there.
Stuck in a 4v5 if they're not careful here. I mean, that wasn't the best place for the pylon, so Lemix, as they rotate back around to the mid, are going to be a little bit low on healing. Top Dragon has rejoined, and Grace trying to step up, keep the grab out of the mix. Sad will get, I believe, hit off the map by the energy javelin. Yeah. That's good stuff from Grace right there. One of the most dangerous players to worry about in this lobby. Here comes an Ant Matrix and a grab. That is quite a lot of damage, but good healing. No, Lemix aren't even going to let Sokichin drop such a big hitbox in that grab and so much damage to the Ant Matrix, but no conversion for Dreamers at all. And with only 20% left, they're going to be scrambling.
This is really well done from Lemix. I mean, this is what I was highlighting, right? About having your window back in, and then now it's all about execution. Jasmine uses the Graviton Surge. Even through a window, the low energy Zarya just does not have the ability to kind of clean up, and Lemix have done a fantastic job of just isolating the forward player of Top Dragon and preventing anyone else from coming in.
And Sat's dead again. And
Overclock too.
Better of such a tenured Sojourn. Beautiful Terror Surge forces the Immortality field. And even that is only barely enough to keep Dreamers in. They're gonna have to beat with just 4 available. Top Dragon, you need this pickup on Taylor. Okay, eventually gets it. The Molten Core has been laid out, but Dreamers are avoiding it deftly. And by the skin of their teeth, they'll give themselves another chance at this first map.
No, I mean, this is where they should be able to close out the map, because it's going to be a haphazard approach. Grace already half HP, dead. And Dreamers will have a blade in the back pocket. Yeah.
All right. Certainly more scrappy than we expected from Dreamers. Lemix giving them a very solid fight on map number 1.
And I think this is, Lemix said, don't underestimate us coming into this, in that sort of pregame or last week's, pick situation. I have to agree with them. They won. Or Dreamers won, yes, but Lemix is not a force to kind of ignore, and I think trying to play with your food just a tad too much. This is Contenders Korea. The teams here are very, very good. You're not going to come in here and just be able to walk over anyone at all, and for Dreamers, it just felt like they weren't all on the same page, and Lemix punished them. Not quite able to take the map away, but coming pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, hard to anticipate that composition, too. We'll have to see what more of the Orisa comes out to play after a break. A pretty hotly contested first map, but Dreamers do walk away with it, as we'd expect, not in the fashion we'd expect. Lemix, really giving them a fight, have completely abandoned the Zarya that didn't work for them yesterday. I guess Zarya abandoned them yesterday to a degree, and now have just decided to roll themselves back one patch and play the Orisa, Bastion, Torbjorn stuff. We'll see how well that keeps working for them as we go into our map number 2 of Hybrid the Farm.
It is, I think, a really curious setup, and I mean, Dreamers vaunted as they are, they have made a pretty key change, right? Jasmine stepping in on the tank role, who is, you know, a new player for them. They haven't had a ton of
big change, especially in this meta,
and also not a lot of time, right? It's a fairly recent pickup, right? Because Liga was playing for them all the way as they were out of knockout, so you know, maybe still needing time to kind of reintegrate with the team, and that does make a kind of aspect of it. However, I will also say that Lemix also played much better today in that first map, even punishing a lot of the mistakes that Dreamers were making, right? Sending in their Genji all alone, without resources, without the bubble, and now this is going to be something they have to continue as they head further into series if they want to try and even things up.
Yeah, we go to Midtown here, and don't get me wrong, I am a big fan of Top Dragon Genji. I'd like to see it at some point in this match, because it did not feel very present on our map number 1, or maybe it did with the aggressive style he plays, to put it, you know, nicely.
So I see Top Dragon Genji featured negative in brackets. All right, enough flaming.
This is Lemix pick.
Yes.
Interesting too. Yesterday they picked King's Row after they
Yes.
lost the first map. Of course, again, yesterday they were playing with Zarya. So this tells me they're gonna play more of the Orisa. I mean, it almost worked for them on map number 1, and Midtown leans itself that way more so than King's Row.
And I mean, the other thing too is Midtown is very unique amongst the map pool that we have, in that multiple regions, so not limited to Contenders Korea, but multiple regions in APAC also have chosen to play Sigma on Midtown, especially on First Point, right? Which we saw yesterday too in the Poker Face Panthera game, where you know, there was that Iliari brought in. Actually, hey, featured right away. Grayson and Jasmine gonna go directly to Sigma. So I think this is it's again a continuation of the idea that you want to, if you don't feel that you're going to have the efficacy on the Zarya, just get away from it entirely and go to a map that features you know, a composition that is featured nowhere else.
And this is something that both of these tank players have experience with, but Grace much more so. Jasmine is very like new Overwatch 2 kind of try and play everything tank. Grace, a little bit more of the traditional off tank with some main tank now featuring in like the Orisa technically, right? But Grace, right up his alley.
Zod on the Soldier actually is a very interesting pick, because usually we'd see a lot of Sojourn defensively, not a lot of range damage from Dreamers, or more correctly, not a lot of burst range damage, and that might actually end up coming back to haunt them, because Lemix, with the amount of healing that is on their backline, is able to get rid of this poke, this sort of extended poke, and just generate ultimates rather than worry about being eliminated.
I'm keeping an eye on Top Dragon too. We did see the Echo yesterday on Midtown defensively. One of the problems it had is it's hard to support. So Top Dragon is going to have to be very stealth deficient here on this defense for Dreamers to hold strong on first. One nice thing about the Soldier 76, it takes care of the Torbjorn turret really well. So at least you don't gotta worry about that annoyance here. Top Dragon nearly dying as he face checks the Torbjorn despite that right click shotgun coming through. And there he goes, he drops.
I mean, look at the health bars of Lemix. Sure, Osiris was really low, but realistically, who is actually threatened by anyone on Dreamers?
I mean, this rotation's pretty free too. Does Stad know that people are walking up the stairs behind him? No clue. Bit of a comms lapse there from Dreamers. Stad, luckily, fast enough to get away with that. Or get away from that, I should say, just barely. Grace does fall too, which means that this push from Lemix probably not too long for this world. Although, as I say that, Stad missing both falls, so Lemix still trying to hang in this. They're throwing in the Captive Sun. Can't make tricks. But it's hard to remove Dada and Jasmine from the train. Here comes a Gravitic Clutch too. Jasmine catching Soki-chan in that one. And that should be this wrapped up. One tick taken though for Lemix.
Yeah, half their time make elapsed as well. And it was very expensive for Dreamers, right? That's 3 ultimates that they had to use to just the backliners of Lemix, right? Ant Matrix and Captive Sun. And you kind of have to wonder, like, that was not Lemix making any tremendous play either. That was sort of just the resources kind of went by the wayside, and then Imperial hit an opening shot. And beyond that, Dreamers kind of crumbled. So I think this is more of an experience fight win than anything else, where you've kind of been in a staggered fight, and so you know you can win it out. But I don't know that the composition has the strength to actually close a confident win.
Man, already so much being used. Oh, attack visor there? Sad? I mean, that's a bit bold. I suppose you can throw the tag visor. It's not like the highest punch ultimate, and it keeps Lemix from pushing, stalls more time away from them as they only have them less than 90 seconds left. Minute 15 now on the clock for them. Quite a few ults too. Lemix just have to pull the trigger. This is something we saw yesterday with the Sigma comps here. Attacking is so slow with these compositions if you're not careful. Already Soki-chan down, sure, Data, or Grace does trade it onto Data, but you need a little bit more, and Osiris is completely caught in the alleyway. Missing and Top Dragon mug him.
This feels like a confidence difference right now, right? Dreamers noticing that Lemix aren't actually willing to press the go button despite having the ultimate advantage, are taking so much space. I mean, Top Dragon and Missin are a hit squad here on the left-hand side of the map from the attacker's perspective, and no one's really pushing them out. And again, Lemix not taking advantage of their burst potential are allowing Dreamers to just hold space in the map uncontested.
I mean, Jasmine's basically just been playing left-click simulator around this corner here. Hasn't really had to do much else. Here's the overclock, but it doesn't even get that much space. Jasmine with a solid gravitic flux. I believe he teed up Top Dragon with that one too. Yeah, there's a dupe. Absolutely ensuring that it was Top Dragon going after that gravitic flux. Now he's even trying to take down the enemy Captain Stun up in the air. Osiris not able to do much, except does get rid of Missin eventually, but it's all too little and all too late unless something goes horrifically wrong for Dreamers here, and they've cleaned it up beautifully. No overtime triggered, and only 41.2% for Lemix on their attack.
Really well done by Dreamers, and I mean, experience is such a valuable asset when talking about team's performance, right? And we saw that from Dreamers. There was a very clear moment to me when the map has kind of flipped on its head, and it was that ultimate fight, right? Actually, right here, the fight before this one, where Lemix have 3 check marks available to them. Dreamers had nothing, and they just don't use that opportunity. They allow Dreamers to poke and prod their way in, and Dreamers, recognizing that, decided, hey, we can put Top Dragon in this corner, this alley, uncontested, because he's not getting pushed. Sure.
Well, and I was just going to say, after that one time Top Dragon dies at the very beginning, too, you could see Top Dragon always had it was the buddy system, right? Like, do you have your alley buddy? Yes, Top Dragon did. It was either Sad with the Biotic Field or Missin coming over on the Illari. Somebody was always there helping him.
Adaptation is the name of the game, and, you know, when Dreamers make that, it puts it at, I mean, 41%. It's not a full hold, but it may as well be one, as Dreamers
just need a fuller hold now.
They need a one fight to close this one out.
Fuller hold. It always sounds so dumb to say, but I love it every single time.
It means it's
I really like this
linguistically
too from Dreamers too.
Yeah.
Because this is so much faster. You get, you know, Lemix, we really only saw them take what, 2.5, 3 fights in their 4 minutes. Dreamers will get upwards of 5 if the, I mean, presumably here. It is much faster paced. It is much more aggressive. You give yourself a lot of chances to secure this objective, and already they're right on top of Soki-chan. Missin does fall for this though, and yeah, I mean, you know, with this overheat, Soki-chan's able to peel away, so maybe a bit too aggressive.
Oh no.
Oh my, well, it's not too aggressive if you're trading for supports. Dreamers, the 4 of them do get into a very solid staging ground to siege the objective as well. They are going to have to try and figure out how to get rid of Taylor. That's really Sad and Top Dragon's job. Can they get up there? Or will they just focus on Soki-chan, who's out of LOS of his only support, who's still hanging around? Taylor has to fall as Sad pushes him, and it is pretty darn clean for Dreamers. This is what we wanted to see on map number 1. Here on Midtown, it ain't close. Dreamers get a solid stomp to take away map number 2.
Match point now achieved for Dreamers, and hey, maybe just a warm-up map, right? Didn't get up quite early enough, so you'll take it out in map number 1. A map they did win, might I highlight, so it's not like it was a terrible performance from them. Now, unfortunately for Lemix, we are very picky.
You and me, especially.
Yeah. Here comes a line that I dare say I've said before, and I know. We head to Flashpoint. It's a map where chaos reigns supreme, more so even than control. Last chance, last opportunity. You have to make something of it. And please, Lemix, play faster. We need more fights from you.
I think part of it is just that composition.
Yes.
Right? Sigma is a slow tank. You get Baptiste and Illari in the back line. That's slow. You get Torbjorn on attack. That's slow. Really, you are very reliant in that composition on not only one, but theoretically multiple picks coming out, especially with the way Grace approached that, always focusing on the tank fight against Jasmine in main, not rotating around, not trying to assist in Siege. We'll see what Flashpoint holds for us when we come back for map number 3. Lemix, you know, these first two games haven't been the 3-0 sweeps in their favor that they were hoping for. It's looking like they might get 3-0 swept twice. But to be fair, they're up against Dreamers, one of the best Contenders teams we've seen all year. So no harm there. The question is, will Lemix be able to pull back and give us, you know, a third map that looks more like Control rather than Midtown? Midtown not particularly close. And they're going to have one more chance when we go into Flashpoint.
I mean, the thing about we're heading to with Flashpoint coming in. I will sort of temper the comment on Midtown because they had an opportunity to take it away, right? They had the economy advantage. I think when you're in a position like that and you're kind of losing out a fight, you get in your own head. You're like, oh, is this the perfect play? Instead of let's just make a play.
Sure.
Because when you're so worried about making a play, sometimes you're like, okay, the wrong play might be the one we make. And we've seen that in the past, right? It's not like making the wrong play is going to win you a fight. However, making no play is also a pretty tough place to be. So I think though Midtown wasn't close, there was the opportunity there. Whereas, I mean, map number 1, they did a great job of being able to hold down Dreamers for a large portion. It came down to one fight, really. So as they head into Suravasa, as we get into the map set of this match, there is, I think, a case where you head back to a style similar to Control where you were close. Maybe you can actually take that fight that you lost and turn it on ahead this time around, now that you've had that experience already.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to get off slower, more like positional composition here too, right? Either going back to the Zarya that we saw them play on Flashpoint yesterday, or they will instead maybe go back to the Orisa that was working for them pretty well on Control. You know, Orisa did get some nerfs on this patch, but Grace was doing pretty all right with it.
Yeah.
And that Bastion alongside of it really made Top Dragon and Jasmine's life difficult. So I wouldn't hate either of those options really, as long as Lemix are decisive in what they want to do.
On the flip side, for the Dreamers, talking about that Top Dragon Jasmine combo, already in this meta, it's shaping up that if you're sort of flex player, meaning the one who's going to play that aggressive style, isn't getting resources and doesn't actually execute when given those resources, you're going to struggle. We saw that already in this match, where Top Dragon really wasn't getting a ton of bubbles, would go in with the Dragon Blade without much attention. And while we don't expect the Dragon Blade to get kills, right, it's more about a resource trade a lot of the time. If you're just getting shut down, then it's not a resource trade, you've just lost. And we need to see a little bit more from Dreamers about keeping Top Dragon in the middle of the fight rather than on the periphery of it, because that's where SAD wants to operate anyway.
Off onto Survasa we go. Market will be our first point of contest as per the norm. And Dreamer's get a much faster rotation. Lemix again playing with Lucio, although the piece we already did work for them on map number 1, so I won't fault them for it just yet, but it doesn't lean into that faster tempo that we've been hoping for from this team. Already Dreamer's set up beautifully to completely lock out Lemix. And they're going to get that first cap without much of a contest at all here. Osiris needs to be careful. Don't play with knives here. Top Dragon is much more comfortable with them than you are. Data is the first to fall, and Top Dragon, buddy, that's not the most dangerous thing in the room. I'm going to be honest with you, dude.
It was actually a good knockback by Osiris. The jump, which has actually, you know, affected the aim enough that he couldn't clean up and get the turnaround. So, I mean, while Dreamers do get percentage, it feels like they lost the plot a little bit. Not aware of who they were really supposed to be focusing down, and as a result, Lemix just play together as a collective and end up with the fight win. So, Dreamers, we criticized them about this in map number 1, and it continues to be an issue. Top Dragon again going in without support, again taken down, and again the fight is over.
Dreamers, they want to just get out of here, but like, where do you go? And Kira's on a perfect angle to pick off SAD. That is another late stagger. Really, you only get one more fight out of this if you're lucky. And now, I mean, I don't think Missin brought his 4-leaf clover along with him today.
And Pierre, also a very young player, by the way. One of the youngest this season of
16.
Contenders. Yeah. Tremendous stuff. Poise under pressure.
There we go. Top Dragon will finally get that healing pylon that's been bothering him for a while.
His nemesis vanquished.
Nice Ant Matrix to start this off. Dreamers answer it right on back, and a rail shot does quite a bit of damage, but it's just a body, so Sook-chan is able to tank it. Grace not having too much fun, but with SAD the first one to fall here. An Immortality Field, tons of healing for Lemix, and Osiris coming up the back. I mean, Missin is in a heap of trouble with Osiris right on top of him, and Top Dragon struggling to even get rid of a Baptiste. At least Missin will take down Grace, but Pierre's got an overclock, and Top Dragon doesn't have enough health to make that happen. Beautiful first stuff for Lemix.
Remarkable there from Lemix. And I mean, a lot of it is coming down to the fact that they're identifying that resource trade, right? Top Dragon has now been taken down several times without support. There we saw Top Dragon on a flank trying to fight a Baptiste without anyone to kind of back him up, and with that, Lemix just win the frontline war, and that gives them that first round and the early lead here on Survasa.
And because they get that first point too, even though they're playing a technically slower composition, they won't lose out on positioning. Going over to our second objective, and Pierre set up nice angle. Top Dragon, it's fine, he's Genji. Okay, there's a grab. We have a blade, try and follow it up. No Immortality Field. Top Dragon whips though, and has to spend the entire time in a deep flight before he walks back into the lava. Oh no, Dreamers! It's not looking too hot. Or maybe it is because the lava, you know?
Yeah, I was about to say. and Lemix also warming up tremendously on that one. That was 2 ults from Dreamers, and realistically, not a ton from Lemix in response. The Graviton Sword had no way to be followed up on, and on top of all of this, Lemix, despite being on the periphery of the objective, still managed to kite Dreamers into small corridors where they could give advantage to Soki-chan and Impure.
Dreamers are gonna play fast though. They've got the sound barrier. Oh, and the deflect damage there is so much. Ant Matrix not quite enough, and Taylor gets his head ripped off by Sad. Lemix trying to hold on for as much percentage as they can. If they can pull one more ult out here, that'd be fantastic, but no, they fall apart before that happens.
That's just an experience fight from Dreamers. Go real quick. Lemix.
They didn't even have to beat.
They did not even have to beat. The other thing too is Lemix. I mean, we saw that first deflect where Jasmine beamed down, Soki-chan on the approach, not respecting the damage throughput that can come in. And when you have that, right, you can set up for the Ant Matrix, and no one can kind of clean up. I like this forward position from Dreamers. They don't want to let Lemix get into the open where the Captive Sun can actually be able to hit multiple members.
This is a really awkward long rotation. We talked about how slow this composition is. The Dreamers taking that forward position, forcing Lemix to reroute entirely, basically circumnavigate the entire map before they get back to the objective. I mean, Dreamers, if they win this fight slow enough, they won't have to win a second on this objective. Ant Matrix stalls out more and more time and gives Jasmine and Top Dragon a chance to build up toward their ults. Jasmine 100 charge and a grab in his pocket. That's hard to push into for Lemix.
I mean, you can see they have to make an approach, but there's no opening, there's no entryway.
Jasmine's ready to grab. He finds Taylor lagging behind just a little bit. Grace and Soki-chan not able to double back for him, and that beam goes straight through the javelin spin. We're tied up after our first 2 points of Flashpoint.
Ooh, Impure, a very delayed pick means that, again, this is going to be, despite this being on the opposite end of the map, it is not going to be a favorable approach for Lemix, as they have to wait for Impure to reset.
The bonus for Lemix here is that this is Palace, and there's a lot of high ground circling the objective, and they're playing a very poke-heavy composition, right? It's hard for Dreamers to push out of Palace on top of them. The bad part is, that means Dreamers are going to get the objective first, probably, unless Lemix pull off something pretty quick here. Top Dragon already trying to lock them out, not give them access to that high ground that would really activate their composition. Here comes the blade. One down. Is this the blade we've been waiting for? Maybe not the super blade we've seen from Top Dragon in the past, but it's clean enough. We'll give it to him. Nicely done.
All right, and this is feeling where it's starting to, I feel, crumble a little bit for Lemix on this map, because despite Dreamers, they had clear faults on that market position where they were just trying to play their hand a little too carefully, try and be a little too cautious. Now they're actually putting resources into the Genji, who can get in, put pressure down, and Lemix have no time to use their resources. All this also just opens up Sod in the backline.
I love these aggressive Ant Matrices. So well done by Dreamers here. And this is the coordinated aggression that we've been waiting for. Piece by piece, they dismantle Lemix on their approach.
Now this is, and I mean, we'll have to see how this goes further in Dreamers in their future games. But this is the team we expected to see. This is the performance we expected to see.
Absolutely, and now I mean it feels like Dreamers they're pushed all the way to the spawn. Oh, Dreamers, once they get in the groove, there is no pulling them out of it. 100-0 on point number 3, and one more chance for Lemix to try and extend this series beyond Saravasa. A tough rotation to Gardens, too. Yeah, they were really hoping it was not going to end up there.
Oh, that's so unlucky. And I mean, now also the Graviton Surge. And because Dreamers have won these last couple of fights so consistently, Jasmine actually gets energy to do something with this Graviton Surge for what feels like the first time all series long.
Look at these nightmarish angles you have to push into. I mean, you'd think these are advantageous for Lemix, but even though they're running a more poke-heavy composition, you don't want to push into long angles, even with that. Captive Sun here trying to get rid of Top Dragon. It gets cleansed off by the Zarya bubble, though. Some little interaction there. Soki-chan's down, and here comes yet another blade. Top Dragon, one day he'll find his target immediately, but he'll convert pretty well onto a second one. Nicely done there, and he'll chase down Taylor. Get Dreamers a comfortable first fight.
Cheap fight, too. I mean, Dragon Blade, we've complained about its efficacy all series long, so the fact that it's the only thing you need to close this one out means that in what is going to be essentially the last real fight of this point, Lemix Lemix haven't really forced Dreamers to empty the bank, right? And I mean, we talk about ultimate. Oh wow, okay, you're just running them. Bye.
Okay, this series has been a tale of two dreamers thus far, right? We have the dreamers of like control and the first point and a half of this map where it's been difficult, it's been discoordinated, and then we have that dreamers, which just runs at Lemix, rolls them over, absolutely no chance. Top Dragon's getting a bubble to ensure that, well, I guess I can't call it a 1v1, but there's just simply no hope for Lemix. Not when Dreamers are online like this. Grace will give him a stationary target to shoot at as the Overwatch, or the overtime wick. There we go. I guess it's an Overwatch wick as well. It burns away either way. And it's Dreamers with a 3-0.
A couple of emotes and celebratory ultimates at the end there for Dreamers. Wow. Well, this actually has more questions for me than answers. Which Dreamers? Dreamers won 3-0, and yet I'm wondering at the end of it, which Dreamers do we see next?
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Certainly an interesting return to Contenders Korea for Dreamers, but it's a 3-0 either way. So, you know, again, LaFawn, you and I are very picky. Especially when it comes to our teams that we expect to perform as the best of the best here in Contenders Korea. But Dreamers, safe to say, they earned this win.
And I mean, this is an excellent welcome to Jasmine too, right? Into this roster.
For sure.
Very large shoes to fill, right?
I mean, you think about Liga in a Zarya meta? Yeah, pretty big. We're talking some, like some Fezzik the Giant size shoes, right?
All right, tremendous stuff. And it felt like as the game went on, we saw a more coordinated Dreamers, right? Where earlier on we had critiques about, you know, where the bubbles were being used, why they were. Jasmine caught out on islands a lot of the time. Towards the end, I didn't have those concerns. I really like 3 of those grabs that happened where you just kind of run players down. Let's take a look though at our player of the match, and stability was the name of the game for this one, I think, because Saad was just consistent all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the growing pains for this roster as they adapt to a new tank, as they adapt to a new meta. Sad had none of those. He was not in pain at all this entire series. I think Empire got the better of him once on the very first map, and otherwise Sad was just lights out, doing a phenomenal job. So consistent, and with such important picks too. I mean, getting rid of the Baptiste there, that's what allows Dreamers to push along that side corridor, right?
Yeah.
Like, if Taylor's still up, you don't want to do that because the reposition is going to be brutal for you. And Sad also the driving force in a lot of these engagements too, right? I mean, you know, we talk about the Top Dragon blades, we look at it because we love Genji gameplay, it's very flashy, but Sad is the one pumping in consistent damage when Top Dragon was 50-50 on his blades.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, talking about a moment, it's not a kill, but on the first map where single-handedly Saad holds down a turret form Bastion through a window, and all of Lemix kind of backs up, right? That's the outsized impact, even if it's not the flashiest one from the Sojourn. So Saad, a player that you and I have seen grow over the last year to kind of include the hit scan prowess, and I mean, I'm really curious to see how well he kind of continues this excellence as he moves further into Contenders this season. Again, having returned from the all knockouts.
Yeah, and for Lemix on the other side of things, it's been a little bit of a tough start for their group stage, right? They're 0-2 in matches, they're 0-6 in maps. But I think now that you've gotten Dreamers out of the way, and that it was admittedly more competitive than I would have expected going into this season, I don't think you can be too upset about how the first couple of matches have played out. There's still 3 more to play. You still have a chance to get your way into that. You just gotta get third.
Yes.
You gotta be middle of the pack in the group, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll get to playoffs, and you'll have an extra week to sort of download and figure out what you really want to do. It feels like Lemix still have to download a little bit. We've seen quite a number of propositions from them over the last few days, but they'll have plenty of time before their next match. You won't, though. Not before our next match that we're going to show here. We got one more for you when we come back from this quick break. I'm hoping that in our second game of the day, we get something that's not 3 Overwatch. Our first 3, they've been fun games. Don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed them.
Yeah.
But I'd enjoy it even more. Maybe a 4 mapper? Dare I say a 5?
At this point, I'm going to forget how to count because we've never gotten over 3. So, you know, it's...
You already forgot how to count. We started that at the top of the day.
That was basic arithmetic.
2 was half of 8.
It's basic arithmetic. It's a little different.
Either way, we're going into our second series.
Oh,
it's a bit of an interesting one.
Yes.
Too. We got 2 teams coming in from the WDG Opens, FM and Revival. No relation to the Revival from NA Contenders once upon a time. We do have quite a bit of experience, though, in at least one of these teams. FM, you know, they came in 3rd in the WDG Open and then picked up a lot of very venerated players.
Yeah, and I mean, that's going to be an interesting, how well do they put it together in such a short amount of time? And, we should, attend to the fact that this is a brand new patch. The WDG Open teams, there we go, have already played on this one. Even actually their tournament was played on this patch. We are in that Zarya elevated position here, as you get a sense of this one. But as we kind of dial into FM here, as they get in, I think expectations have to be higher for them considering all these changes they've made.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not even considering the changes, but considering that FM is not even technically speaking, they are straight up a returning team to Contenders Korea. Now, they weren't one of the ones that went to, the knockouts, but I mean, look at this roster, right? Dox and Scarlet, Dox, Scarlet, and KHD were all here before. Actually, I'm getting one of those wrong. Hold on. I know. No, KHD was not here. That's what it was. Yeah. Oh no, it was Dox. One day I'll learn my own brain, LaFawn. So Scarlet and KHD were the two here. Doc, Slime, Gurio, all new.
Yes.
Gurio, technically, an Overwatch League champion. Slime, Overwatch League stage champion with the Vancouver Titans once upon a time. One of the most experienced support players and Lucio's in all of Overwatch, if not just Contenders Korea, especially this season. This roster's kind of stacked.
And I mean, they're getting into a meta where you have to think kind of favors them, right? Talking about Lucio, obviously, that has gotten a little bit more prevalent. With Gurio, one of the things that is a big thing is, just absolutely unreal aim. Gonna have to make use of that. We expect to see a lot of Sojourn. Let's take a look, though, at Revival. A newer look, a newer team coming in. Yes. And yet, even still, players that we will have recognized from past seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen Jinsung before, of course. Ruler as well. Ruler, actually, fun fact, played not only in the WGG Opens, but also in their high school series. So that's fun.
Yeah.
Tidbit. Going all the way from like a high school, like a local high school competition, all the way up into Overwatch Contenders and playing against, maybe some guys he's looked up to for a while, right? With Slime and Gurio on the other side of things. No mercy for your previous heroes, if that's even the case for Ruler. Regardless, though, we're going to Contenders Korea, all's fair in Overwatch. Well, that's not true, is it, LeBron?
No. A little bit more position, though, in terms of rookie talent, right? We do know that there are players that have less experience at this stage, especially if you're looking at that DPS core for Revival. With all that being said, though, we are going to start off on Busan. And with this particular map, right, there is such a difference between the three stages that the expectation, I mean, once we go to like Sanctuary, the flavor we've had here in Contenders Korea was that Poker Face Panthera game, so you can't draw too many conclusions about the grand meta that is to be expected on this map. But one thing we do know is that there is some shift from point to point stylistically on Busan. When, Downtown has played, I think we're going to expect to see the Zarya, I think. But then Mecha Base, if we end up going there, a little bit different. And then Sanctuary 2, you can play a little bit more stable. We've even seen Sigma to a certain extent, although I don't necessarily think that is going to be expected pickup.
To be fair, right, we know very little about these tank players.
Yeah.
Right. Dox has not really played in Contenders Korea much before. Neither has Ruler. So this is us learning what sort of flexibility or lack thereof might be in the hero pools of these two tank players pivotally as they go into this season. Already we see a bit of a mix match. This is a mix match we're seeing pretty commonly. Some teams trying to stick to the Orisa of last patch, and some teams trying to force something new. We get out into our second match of the day, and on to Busan.
Fast approach, too, from both teams. It's going to be teleport and speed boost, so we're going to get a very aggressive setup. And, I mean, when it comes to damage throughput, you have to look at Gurio, right? That configuration tank, just a tremendous burst. But once it expires, the power scaling from FM goes down pretty significantly.
And this is a very safe position for FM, but it's not going to get them much if they can't find themselves an opening. You need Scarlet or Gurio to pry open Revival's position, because right now they're spread out. There's not a group of targets for Gurio to just force the turret form into, and Revival will backtrack to the point pretty successfully. Now FM trying to push forward, but they've already used that configuration tank. And here comes Dox. Oh my, that's a tasty javelin spin, quite a bit of damage, but Hofak will dash out of that. Jinsung not so lucky, and without your Baptiste, Revival, I dare say you are not long for this world. Nah, they're getting chased, ring around the rosy on this stairwell. They will get the point over, it seems.
Oh, it's a little unfortunate that Fiesta goes down, because now these are just stranded players. You can't wait for Jingsun to return. Instead, it's going to be clean up. And FM should take a pretty hefty lead on this essentially first half fight in this round. Now, the other thing too is that I did like that setup from Revival where they played passively, forced FM to make a decision, but unfortunately they weren't able to quite defend their backline. And I mean, they're going to have to be able to keep that up, because that is the weakest point of kind of Revival's comp.
Ant Matrices traded, but again, Jinsung down early. Gurio finding the better end of him. Revival has stepped to the objective, get themselves a brief cap, but it feels very brief.
Oh.
Ruler already harrowed, and Fiesta is lasered down. Easy flip back for FM, only a few measly % for Revival.
Yeah. Man, it feels really bad to see Lucio kind of dash across the screen of a Bastion.
It's really the one place you do not want to be.
Yeah. It's like no walls to ride on, and the Bastion just can't miss. All right.
record scratch, freeze frame. Yep, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got in this situation.
Speaking of situations, it's going to be a lot of
enviable one, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Terra Surge to collect everyone together. You expect, actually the combo here with the ults of the Bastion.
Terra Surge hits Revival a little bit. They have to use the sound barrier to try and regroup, but it's matched by FM, and this blade from Windy doesn't really get squat. Eventually, Dox does fall, and that will give Revival their chance to walk forward. Not half bad charge for Ruler, about 80%, up to 100 now, protecting his Genji and pushing FM out of here.
It's good that they didn't use this Graviton Surge either. With that being their only ultimate, realistically, in the next little while, you need something to defend against this Dragon Blade, and I would not hate seeing a solo grab on the Genji in this next engagement, because it should guarantee the fight win, right? There's no punching power beyond that, especially if you can burst the Genji down quickly. So for Revival, it's all about identifying the approach angle. Seems that they're kind of playing super passively, though.
I'm not even sure that you know Scarlet's behind them.
Yeah.
Here comes that turret.
Oh.
Revival, they are backing up into where Scarlet is waiting in theory. Climb falling, though, that makes it harder for FM to chase. It's all on Scarlet, and he does pretty well. Already good for one. Or actually, no. He gets rid of the Immortality Field and helps Gurio get one instead. The Espen Ruler hanging on by a thread here. Ruler pretty low, but dancing around the Bastion. Can he get another bubble? No, it was 4 seconds left on cooldown. And that means FM should be pushing forward. This is turned into a very scrappy fight. Slime back from the respawn, showing his experience, now chasing down Hopeback. Guys, I'll do it myself. It's fine. And we pretty much have a tied up percentage here as FM are trying to take the objective. They have their tank player much faster, and they should be able to get them.
Oh, what a bubble. Right off the respawn
bubble
there. Oh, boy. Windy saw the light flash before his eyes at the end there. What a chaotic fight. Still very expensive for FM. I mean, you need to get a pick off. You need to get an uncontested pick off. That's kind of the name of the game here. Playing into the sound barrier is what Revival's looking for, and it's stymied by FM playing aggressively and getting early elimination.
Well, we're taking up to overtime here. It's not easy to play against the artillery. That's a tough corridor to be stuck against so many shells. Hofak blasted away, but Dox does fall, and a beat keeps the other 4 members of Revival in this fight. I'm trying to chase away, but can he really help his team right now? Scarlet scattering to the winds and not able to get out of there. Windy chases him down, and Revival have made this happen. 95% and ticking. A desperate Doomfist from Dox to try and touch the objective here, but it's denied.
Really well done by Revival there. I mean, playing for that sound barrier, that was the difference maker. To go for Hofak required both Slime, required Slime to run down all the way. It was a boot that actually kept Hofak in the AoE of that final mortar of the artillery strike. But while that's happening, Gurio's not in the fight to put down consistent damage for the rest of the team. Slime ends up being taken out right after, and Revival, with the sound barrier, they have the sustain to close out the end of the fight. So Revival playing around their win conditions quite intelligently, identifying that FM just don't have the personnel to really force them to take or to give space on the objective, allows them to flip that and take the first point, now leading 1-0.
Solid start. Solid start for Revival. On to Mecha Base we go. No swaps for either team. It was 99 to 100. No reason to try and rewrite your own playbook after just one lost round. Windy. Okay. Managed to breeze on out of there. Catches an air current.
Ooh.
Too. I mean, they've set themselves up on the high ground pretty nicely here. Configuration doesn't really do a whole lot for Gurio. That is the majority of FM's damage, and once it's gone, Revival trying to go for the throat. Can just laser straight through the energy javelin. That's the danger of the Orisa, and a nice pick on the side there from Hofak. Even dives behind a box, gets an immortality field, and gets rid of Gurio to boot. Beautifully played. I'm loving this Sojourn play from Hofak so far.
That is the other thing too is the presence of mind to know that you don't actually have to disengage from that fight. Something that we've seen players do in this season of Contenders Korea. Facing down a Bastion is such a terrifying setup, right? But having the faith in your team to put that immortality field to keep you alive and actually just take that face check. We saw Gurio have to hesitate to go back to the immortality field. Ends up being the cost of his own demise. And now going to try and choke down the 3 players while isolated while the point flips over.
FM, they're struggling to even get to the choke, much less push past it here. Scarlet and Slime on an odd off angle, and that just gives Revival a 3v5.
Yep.
They really don't mind if they lose a couple percent. They'll double back to the objective once they've secured themselves an unlosable advantage.
And that was FM investing too, right? Like it's not like that was a free fight for FM to get what was it, 5% or something. And now, I mean, Revival seem to have been buoyed by the confidence earned of that last fight. They're just gonna keep pressing and forcing FM to make choices just to get out of spawn.
Look at Gurio. He's getting upset that Hofak's taking him to the cleaners here, so he's gonna match Sojourn to Sojourn. Gurio, pretty prolific Sojourn player.
Oh boy.
Carly, him and Slime need to get out of there. They need to stop doing that. I didn't like it the first time. I much didn't like it the second.
Okay, I don't like it when I see it in my ranked games. When someone's like, no, we'll split forces. I really don't like it in a competitive match, so hopefully...
the Lucio for the other three people.
Especially the Orisa.
He can go wherever he wants, but Slime really needs to be with Dox and KHD. There's an Ant Matrix here. Windy in front of it, though. I mean, FM aren't getting any use out of that ultimate. Revival now out of LOS of it, too. Now charging forward, unafraid entirely. The beat does drop, saving him from the grab. Only for a moment, though, as Windy has the blade out. He's chasing down Gurio, and Hofak helps him out. A beautiful rail shot midair there. The first round was closed. Revival are not letting this one be anywhere near as competitive.
And that is going to be it. Now we're looking at a last second contest. I don't know that FM even makes it off the respawn in time. They have a blade, but they need to get there first, and they will not do so.
No one's here. That's it. Revival cook FM on Mecha Base. They saute him. It's a nice little blend that they're making.
Yeah.
Out of such talented and experienced players. You know, we talk about Gurio, Slime, even KHD and Scarlet have, one of them probably has more Contenders experience than the entirety of Revival, and yet here we are.
It's a team difference. Revival play as a squad. I mean, FM just 2 and 3, split players, and it's not like, in times where we would have sort of the Wrecking Ball Tracer combo, as a two-man squad. No, this is just 2 players that are kind of isolated on their own, and Revival punished them for it. I really do think this is a coordination difference after map number 1, especially after round number 2. We'll see how well FM can recover, because it is now their pick. Remember, coming into this, technically favored FM, both in their seeding, coming in from the opens, as well as the fact they made a bunch of pickups. So very, very difficult place for them to be, but they'll have to try and equalize as Revival takes a pretty deft start to this one.
I really just can't fathom that second run at the Genji.
Yeah.
So, like the first run, sure, try whatever you want. But hopefully we won't see any more of that as we go on to map number 2 after a quick break. Overwatch League titles are fine and dandy, but they don't mean squat here in Contenders Korea. FM find that out the hard way. Although I guess Slime also has a Contenders Korea title. It's just from like 2018. So FM need to catch up with the times. You can feel it in their composition.
Yes.
Still running the Orisa from last patch, not quite up to the Zarya as of yet. And Revival smash them on the second round of Busan. The first one was pretty close.
I mean, statistically, we haven't seen the Orisa win a. We saw it win 1 point, right? But it hasn't won a map in Korea yet.
Yeah.
Actually, it's won 2 points. It's won 2 points.
Two. That's right.
Lijiang Tower and Marco and Suravasa. But overall, it has not been as effective. I think it's just less consistent, right? I mean, the thing is, in the previous patch, you could have 2 main threats that you could change the rotation cooldown around, right? You could chain cooldowns, which is the Orisa and then the Bastion. Here, not so much. Once the Bastion kind of loses his rotation, it gets really tough. That being said, that is the past. We are headed to Midtown next, and the thread that has been consistent is that when we go to Midtown, we've seen Sigma. And this has been across multiple teams, multiple days. I expect that to continue here, actually, and to kind of go back to that poke mirror that has been consistent on this map.
Yeah, it will be Revival defending first two. I think there's a strong opportunity when they go on the attack. They might play something that Dreamers just played, right?
Yeah.
Which is playing that Zarya composition, trying to outpace the Sigma and just run your way to the, rotate your way to the objective, right? But on defense, the Sigma seems to be the name of the game here on Midtown for at least the 4 teams we've seen defend Midtown thus far.
Also, we
also don't know a ton about Dox and Ruler and how they necessarily want to play this map. I mean, we've seen Ruler on some Winston. I doubt we get any Winston here. But, you know, there's a lot of different flavors you can bring to Midtown. It's a map that's had a lot of different use in a lot of different metas.
And I think the other thing, too, is that we actually haven't seen much of Midtown. We've seen First Point, and that's about it. Right? It's been Hold City on Midtown. And
Revival, they're not bothering with the Sigma on defense.
All right.
Ruler's confident in that Zarya play.
This is absolutely unique now to Midtown, is the amusing thing. On defense specifically, this is the first time we're seeing a non-Sigma composition. By the way, you said Dox Winston. There's no way, surely.
Man, look at this comp, though. Like, we don't know a ton about Dox, but every other player is on what you would think is one of their comfort picks, right? KHD, the few times we've seen him thus far in Contenders, I have loved his Ana play. It's hard to pull off. Against Zarya, though, those antis can be cleansed unless you're hitting 3-4 targets at a time.
Revival actually taking the worst of the poke. Well, there's an anti.
Yeah, the other way, though.
Yeah.
FM, a little bit lucky to get out of that one.
I think Slime might actually be isolated.
Not quite. It's a little bit close.
Okay.
Scarlet is able to get around here.
Still, this is a labored approach.
I'm on this angle.
Despite it being weaker by Revival, it is still very labored by FM trying to take space in the map here.
Nice little dive here. Windy has to cede the space despite the assistance of Fiesta, Dox, Slime, and Scarlet. Forcing that position away, and now Fiesta, the break, that's a little bit isolated here, is getting support from Jinsung, but that's not nearly enough. Nice push into the backline too. Jinsung is harrowed. Both supports down. Makes for an easy first point for FM.
Okay, so Revival saw that their supports were being isolated, so they decided to try and trade backlines. The problem with that strategy is that if you don't trade the backline quickly enough, you just end up losing the fight. And FM are just quicker on the draw, right? Revival, despite having, I would argue, the better positioning, just allow Dox to control the entirety of the middle of that point. And really, there was no response. And it's not like FM actually had, a player just having an outsized impact in terms of damage. It's pretty shared equally across the point. So they'll capture first and be able to make their way through.
Very textbook advancement there from FM and not much counterplay attempted from Revival. Can't just let FM get away with whatever they want. Eventually, Revival, they're going to have to pull their own triggers and push forward.
Who did you nano here?
Nano.
I think
he's at the ready.
I think you
maybe farm play. I mean, you have a lot of options with the nano. I don't think you use it haphazardly.
You almost kind of want, because defensively there's not a ton on FM's side. I actually think you kind of nano the neutral here on Genji and just trying to.
Ooh, beautiful coach gun from Hofak there. Dox denied access to the high ground. Now it's Scarlet with a nano. A little bit of a later blade. Can he convert? Looking for Jinsung, Fiesta, whoever he can get. eventually gets rid of the Brig as the rest of his team is picking up the rear, but no, Doc's denied again. Hofak not letting the enemy Winston play the game.
Nano was actually used by Jinsung in the ensuing thing. I think it was actually onto Hofak on the dive. That's why he didn't die instantly to the Blade, the Nano Blade combo. But it's a good trade too, right? FM, they can't, despite using such an expensive combo, don't make much progress. The payload has stopped approximately where it was when that all started.
Really solid defense from Revival here so far. Now they've got a grab too. I mean, how do you survive a grab when Ruler throws it down? Rally? Good luck.
I mean, it's more about who gets trapped in the grab, right? If it's your Winston, that's something you can probably keep him up. It really is.
You know, in a universe, I saw Docs getting grabbed right then and there as we were talking about it. Ruler decides to wait on that one.
I mean, it's up to Ruler. It's Ruler's selection about who gets in the grab that actually spells the difference for how effective this grab is going to be.
I mean, until things get dicey, he doesn't really have to do much with it. Look, he pulls back into the room, lets Windy go out with a blade, and KHD's down. Nice stuff, too. Windy in a little bit of trouble. Gurio running him down with attack visor. All right, sure. I guess that's one way to deal with that. The payload inching along as Docs tries to get the Primal Rage finished on Fiesta. There we go. All right, eventually gets that done. And Revival are on the back foot, but they're not giving up much space.
I mean, they're on the back foot in the sense that they lost the most recent pick, but I don't know that actually the payload is firmly in their territory, right? And FM used everything to get the payload here, so it's a really tough place. Midtown, historically, once the payload gets here, the map becomes extremely defender favored.
Nice grab. Impressive here. Oh, and a beautiful anti too. Docs and Slime eliminated in the blink of an eye. No counterplay opportunity for FM there. They're sent packing.
Okay, HD. If you get staggered here, it's going to be disaster. Oh, he has to reload. Okay, no, he's fine.
Staggered.
The backup.
100% staggered.
Well, the reason why that stagger is so big is because now it's going to be like the 140 mark where you actually see this fight being taken next. And FM, in the meantime, the only thing they've actually been able to generate is the nano boost. So you have to use it in a neutral engagement. I think this time it's probably going to be Docs that you give it to, because I don't think you can wait for the Blade this time around. And while all that's happening, I mean, Revival aren't going to be able to sustain. Bob is going to take the majority of the attention, and then Jinsung a panic button if required.
Oh no, Gurio just runs right under the laser beam. He thought the bridge would provide cover, but Ruler rains down from above. Not even on Farah.
I mean, I think the thing that feels the worst about that fight too, is that FM did not meaningfully make any progress resource-wise.
No, I mean, Gurio just ran down. Ruler was like, oh, okay, I mean, I can track you while you run in a straight line, buddy. Now FM, they really only have one more shot here. They don't open up with Nano either. They know it's available for Revival. Ruler looking a little bit low, but has plenty of support and even gives a bubble over.
Oh my, KHD's dead.
Really feeling any trouble. Hofak with the Bob pretty deep here, but overextends a bit. Windy does trade it back though. His allies' sacrifice is not in vain. Scarlet, this blade has to be massive. Already won. There we go, finally. Jinsung falls, but Scarlet shortly after dies himself, and with the nano on Ruler, he gets rid of the rest of FM.
Oh, and I mean, 30 seconds left. Grav Blade combo. I mean, you're looking for a hero play, really, from KHD, right? The sleep to kind of bring things down. Because in a grab, the Blade is not going to be affected by the rally. The shield batch just cannot do anything, right? So,
quick, Gurio, get the optimal flank visor. That's really
somebody's also somebody's a touch. Just there's 10 seconds.
I mean, Slime stepping forward. You could see Ruler thought about going more aggressively there. Instead, will use the Graviton Surge to get rid of the tack visor in its entirety. A sleep eventually puts Gurio to bed, and Ruler makes him sleep 6 feet under the ground. Here's a blade 2 from Windy just to make sure the people trying to touch the cart aren't around for long. Docs at least has a primal. Ooh. Can extend this a little bit, but FM aren't picking up anything here. And I mean, it's not a terrible push, but they were certainly hoping for more.
That was some really nice mechanics by Windy there. Did you see him jumping over the dash? So he didn't take that free damage from Scarlet on the other side. Oh, I mean, this has been Midtown's most awkward place to aggress into. Is this sort of archway under the Midtown tunnel? Also, the nano blades have gotten no value. 1 kill is not enough.
Ruler's so on top of it with the bubbles, right? I mean,
Oh!
it's 225, and if 2 bubbles are thrown in,
Yeah.
that's so much health. 450 is a lot to chop through, even with the nano blade.
Yeah.
That's what, 3-4 swings?
I mean, it's essentially a tank's HP worth of damage to go through.
You have 2 tanks to deal with, essentially, if Rulu's using his bubbles. And then he gets charged, then he gets the nano, right? It's great team play from Revival right now. They're a step, or maybe even multiple steps ahead of FM entirely.
If anything, you're kind of thinking like, hey, maybe that first fight, like giving up so much space to FM. Now it's the question is, does that come back to haunt them, right? If their attack run here is not as clean, this is, I think, where FM makes up the most ground is on first point. Because once you take control of that high ground on second, Zarya is so tough to dislodge in this patch with how much HP effective HP she has at her disposal with her teammates around her, right? So, yeah, this first point has to be critical for FM.
And same comp from them too. Only difference is Slime going to the Lucio on defense instead of offense.
At least you have a sound barrier now, a defensive ult for the combos that Revival kind of want to run through.
Yeah, I mean that does help, buffer some of the grav and nano blades and threat, right? But it's a lot of lifting for just one defensive ultimate to do. Revival right now just poking, getting their rotation around the alley. This is pretty clinical stuff. Nice contest though from Gurio and Slime. Scarlet getting the better of Windy too. Tough to make this rotation happen if you can't force those DPS players away from the alley defensively. So it's just players farming ults.
Speaking of farming ults, Dox takes so much damage.
And he's alive though. That gives KHD a lot of nano charge.
It also gives Ruler a ton of ult charge. Like Dox should not be this far behind a Zarya, and it's not like Ruler is that far ahead in terms of energy either, right?
Yeah, the problem for Dox is that he's only really fought Ruler, right? The way Winston gets ult so fast is you dive into 3-4 players at a time, but Ruler's stepping up and Dox isn't able to fight more than him and not able to fight him when he's at 100% charge.
Oh boy.
He pushes over and helps his team clear out the alley players. Sure, you lose one, but that's more than worth it. Now Revival, they can advance, and it's tough to keep Ruler on the back foot. Ofac sliding away too. Dox at least peels back into the train and survives for a moment, but how long can he stay there?
Actually, this is getting a little bit dangerous. With Gurio being able to farm with the tactical visor, yeah, he can get in on the point and play really aggressively, which, by the way, Revival has not played into.
Oh, that's a nano. That's a lot of damage to nano defensively to try and keep Gurio alive for the nano visor, and it just barely manages to do so. He hounds down on Rulu, who throws out a grab haphazardly. Oh, okay, I mean, almost there. Slime super low. Holy moly, how has Windy managed to pull a tick out of this one? He hasn't quite yet. Dox with the primal gets back just in the nick of time.
This is something we've seen from Midtown players all too frequently, in my opinion, is that when it gets into this devolved chaos, rather than coalescing on the objective to try and draw your opponent in to make an actual final stand on the point, they just play passively scattered around the map, and it ends up being for naught. So now Revival, in what looked like a good start for them, this is all withered away. They have nothing left.
Oh, but they have an ante. They have an ante, and that's all they need. And now they have a blade. Gurio charging away, charging backwards.
Okay.
And Revival, I mean, there's no contest here. The one grace they did have going into that fight was a bank of ultimates.
Well, they actually can. No, they can. They can.
Scarlet's thinking about it.
Yeah, they have sound barrier.
For this. There's nothing defensively. A beat into a blade. Windy's already gone. Everybody's in this room. A beautiful sleep from Jinsung, though. Puts the blade on the floor. Hofek drills Scarlet into the ground. And Revival trying to survive this rotation, but they are getting chased down, and Ante's not quite enough. And they will just barely be denied that cap.
Oh, no. I mean, this is, again, another opportunity where Revival just don't pay attention to the win conditions of their opponent. I mean, great presence by FM, though, to recognize Windy was well out of position to go for that blade beat combo.
Scarlet's positioning there was so cheeky. You never expect the Genji to be there so late.
Oh, boy.
Now, I mean, Windy swapping over to the Reaper, swapping all around. I mean, it makes Dox's life a little bit more difficult. It means that Revival can fight on the objective, just go for a 5-man rotate all the way through. They can't afford for anyone to get caught out, though. Windy does have that Wraith form, so manages to escape there.
The problem is everyone on Revival is close quarters, and Gurio's going to be more than pleased to have that with the long-range damage as the Tactical Visor comes in.
Yeah, Attack Visor just makes it almost impossible for Revival to exit here. The one benefit they have is that Ruler can tank a lot of that with the bubbles, but now Bubble's gone. Lamp has to be used, and Ruler doesn't have enough feet to stand on here, not against a Kitsune Rush. Thrown out onto the point. A valiant effort, an excellent defense from Revival, but their attack will not quite cut it, as FM, for the first time this season, give us a tied match at 1-1.
I mean, that is a lot better of an approach from FM. And hey, I mean, it ends up being the case where Revival, they look at that first point where they gave it up so easily, and they're like, what if this could come back to haunt us? It does indeed. And I mean, credit to FM for identifying a clutch moment. And it was a moment that wasn't, you know, sometimes we've seen players try and clutch and instead they just kind of throw ultimates away. I mean, it happened right in this map, right? We saw the Graviton Surge that was extremely ill-advised. That play from Scarlet and from Slime, the combo, to go for the Beat Blade combo when everyone is out of sorts, really, really excellent heads-up play. And it's a large part of the reason why FM have evened up the series.
And something we've seen from Slime before when he was on like SLT is that veteran presence. He brings those calls, he brings that experience. Hey, we can make this recontest happen. We have the beat, we have the blade, we have a killer combo to try and stuff this attack right here, right now. Beautiful stuff from FM, and we get at least 2 more maps of Overwatch after a break. FM strike back on Midtown. Not quite the first movement, but I guess the second movement. A late movement's better than none, I suppose. We get our first tied match. First match tied. There we go. FM again. Of our season so far. No more 3 Overwatch. We get a closer game than that. Now we move to map number 3. We go to Flashpoint and see who can take a lead.
And as we get into Flashpoint, we actually have a different map today. So the second map was going to be New Junk City for this one, and I think this is going to be curious because I think. First of all, let's talk about FM. They had a composition on Midtown that was so contrary to what we've been expecting across multiple regions, not just Korea. Just keep that in mind. It's not just Korea that is playing the Sigma mirror on Midtown first. So unique in this regard means that I think that the comfort level is for FM is going to be playing around this mobility stuff a lot of the time, which means as we head to New Junk City, you almost think that maybe you see the Winston come out again.
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't necessarily hate it. We have seen mobility compositions are, I think, the most viable on Flashpoint, right?
Yeah.
In the current state of Overwatch. That being said, the Winston still feels a little bit dubious to me. It feels like there are some vulnerabilities there. It doesn't quite pack the same punch as the Zarya does on the modern patch.
If I had to... I think the thing is, if I had to guess, though, is I do think they'd probably go back to the Orisa Bastion. This is the other thing, too, is because...
Which I also wouldn't love, I'll be honest.
But here's the problem, right, is that because they won that last map, FM, I don't think their comp is why they won that last map, right? I don't, and not to cast aspersions to FM, because they did perform well. Coming into New Junk City.
It wasn't a compositional difference. It was FM performed well.
Yes, but also because Flashpoint plays so similarly to Control, but faster.
Yes.
The fact that you lost Control in that head-to-head means that, this is the tough thing. I think they're going to try to run it back with just...
I don't disagree with this for now. We'll see if Dox is able to stand his ground as effectively as he did on the defense of Midtown as we roll out into New Junk City. I mean, that and the Kiriko, the only two differences between these compositions, DPS all still the same. And we head to the arena to battle it out. A lot of damage. Oh, okay, Windy. Had a little bit better on Scarlet there, but didn't want to overstay his welcome. The team too far away to assist. Ruler taking a lot of damage. Those bubbles just aren't enough. Not when 5 people are pounding you in the face.
And this is how...
Beautifully done by FM to start this.
This is how this composition is able to beat the Zarya one. It is going to come down to execution and mechanics. And we don't often talk about this in terms of when we're analyzing a fight, because a lot of the time it's a sort of nebulous... It's something that you can't control in terms of understanding the macro. But truthfully speaking, I mean, Gurio has some of the best aim. We've seen how aggressive Scarlet can be on the Genji and how effective he can be in close. And for FM... that is what it's going to come down to. Can they get in and win the fight before Revival's composition actually starts to come online resource-wise?
Well, and now, I mean, off the Reaper here, Dox has to be the primary target, but Windy doesn't get a secondary bubble. I don't even know if Ruler had it up. He tries to use it for himself. That's the same place he got pushed into and died last time. He'll make it a little bit further back, and his corpse will pile up with his team.
And the problem with Flashpoint is now this has turned into a mental game for Revival, right? Can they reset their tempo? This point is over. Revival has lost it. FM will take an early lead on New Junk City. But can you kind of stabilize and just slow the game down? Remember, FM wants to play quick.
Windy, poor dude, rolls out, sees Winston, swaps, gets 2-tapped by Gurio twice, swaps back to Genji. Oh, my man cannot decide how he wants to try and tackle this.
Keep in mind, this has all been neutral fight wins by FM. It's been that aggression being close. Here's that first ultra game, actually.
Bomb flats. FM dumping everything here. I mean, Kitsune Blade, and yeah. Oh, yeah. Scarlet, his ace is stolen by Dox. But I think he's happy all the same.
Switches coming through now for Revival. How many more are we going to see? I don't think you can't make any because you need ults for this next part, right?
Yeah. And the Amp Matrix was used, so Jinsung can swap off here.
This feels like they're...
Hofak was doing a lot on map number 1. And quite a bit on Revival's defense, too. I'd love to see this overclock pop up Curio, the first one to get these rails charged. OFAC now trying to at least hammer into Dox some with this overclock, but you need the squishy targets, you need the headshots, and Dox doubles back with the help of Scarlet to get rid of that overclock. Ruler, please don't use the grab here. This fight is cooked.
Man, it feels like Revival are trying to play one ult to fight to try and just kind of eke their way forward. But because it looks like they kind of want to change styles in terms of what their approach is, and yet they can't really because they have ultimates. So they use ultimates, but they're ineffective. And so now they're kind of just caught in this holding pattern, right? And unfortunately, what that means is on Flashpoint, you don't have time to be indecisive. The second point's over.
FM's already charging in, keeping Revival from even contesting comfortably here. Already, I think both bubbles having to be used. Revival with such a long rotation. I mean, they'll get to the point and trigger overtime. Grab in the pocket. Ruler, you gotta figure out a target right now. Dox is solo. Okay, Ruler, no, you needed to live. The bubble was 2 seconds off cooldown. And now Curio and Slime are feasting. Scarlet has Jinsung in his sights. Curio with another rail shot. And FM with a second point.
Second 100 to 0 point at that. Right, these have not been close rounds for FM. And the problem with FM winning that one so cleanly is that every ult that Revival is going to try and bring to this conversation, I mean, FM has tools to actually, turn it back in their favor. So it's going to be, even if Revival wins this one, which I think they should, by virtue of having just more resources, they're going to have to overspend. And that's the big problem. It does not set you up for success later in this round. And keep in mind, we are on the point that would give this map over to FM.
Ruler's got to figure out a place to put this grab. He's holding on to it. Far too many fight. Kitsune Rush to start it off. Traded back and forth. Gurio's the first to fall. Good start for Revival, and they needed to follow up on this. Dox now getting hurt, but just barely gets the primal in time. Scarlet not so lucky. Won't be able to pull out the blade. And even with this primal out from FM, it doesn't feel like they're going to be long for this world. Revival finally getting themselves a fight win, and it was pretty cheap.
I do like that presence from Revival to not overspend ultimates there. Actually, not spend anything but the mirrored Kitsune Rush. That is something that was, it felt like they were somewhat rattled in the first 2 rounds, but it seems they've taken a breath, taken a step back, and they're actually just playing collected, which is what they need to do from here on out to try and, take this map for themselves.
Down barrier here is Fiesta was worried Ruler was going to get taken down. Windy diving into the back line. Nice little deflect, Curio. Not quite the trigger discipline he was hoping for there. And Revival, I mean, it looks like they're going to clean up another one. Easy peasy.
Yeah, and even Windy going down there doesn't actually end up being that, doesn't matter that much because of the fact that it trades out with Slime, so you'll get back fairly quickly. You still have this grab from Ruler. Okay, now I'm starting to get... Here's the problem. When you hold a grab...
It's been 4 fights.
Well, here's the problem when you have an ult that you hold for too long. I don't actually have faith that it's going to be that effective here, especially because the sound barrier is coming back for Slime, so...
It's something you said yesterday, waiting for the perfect opportunity instead of... Or actually today, waiting for the perfect opportunity instead of a good opportunity. And look, I mean, Revival, it's too late. It's too late. They didn't find any opportunity.
It just felt like Ruler's hunting for the perfect grab, right?
Can we check his keyboard? Is his ultimate key bound?
Yes.
I would believe after the second map, where he maybe tossed that one grab away, maybe he unbound it.
It needs to stop. It cannot be perfect for Revival, right? Just has to be a solo grab to eliminate a player. Burst them down before sound barrier cuts through, right?
No. Find one isolated pick here. I mean, easier said than done.
Sure.
Especially when Slime with the beat in his hand. Overclock here, trying to force FM's hand, but OFAC doesn't have a viable target. He'll take a couple shots across the bow, but only bodies is what he finds. Now the beat's out in full force. Counters that grab we've been waiting to see. Revival already so low across the board. And AHD throws down the Kitsune Rush to keep the good times rolling for FM. Ruler finally after some charge, and yeah, Kitsune Rush here available, but I mean, you have to use it. It's last chance, last fight, last opportunity, but Ruler just doesn't have enough damage, just doesn't have enough sustain. And FM will take the lead in this series.
Tremendous from FM. I mean, that last round, sure, it was closer, but that was a 3-0 on Flashpoint, on New Junk City. Yeah. tough times for Revival as they'll lose. I mean, now they're down in the series, right? 2-1 scoreline as we head to map number 4, and this was not a close one. Keep in mind, I think confidence is starting to play a big part in this one. You can see Ruler is hunting for the perfect grab. It has plagued Revival since that defense on, or since their offense rather, on Midtown. They'll have to try and just dial things in as they get to map number 4. And again, look for a good play, not the best play.
A play that works, right? That's all we need here from Revival. And they had plenty of those on the last couple of maps, which were much closer than this one. It also feels like FM are really getting the feel of this composition that they're playing into this, right? The Winston, at the very least, is making Windy very uncomfortable and doesn't give a phenomenal target over to Ruler to try and charge, those bubbles. It's not a lot of burst damage, so the energy is hard to charge up. The Winston's hard to pin down unless you're going to solo grab him, and Dox has Primal so often, especially on Control, where it is a lot of, that cleave damage that you get from the Tesla cannon. So a great start here for, I mean, we're, most of the way through the series. A great map for FM. That's what I meant to say. Push. At least we get one more, right? Yeah. If this was any other series we've seen this week, it would have already been done. It would have been dusted. We would have been heading out of here. We got more time. We got more Overwatch. We got more chance for people to earn their skins. We won't be out of here in 2 hours today.
Yeah. Well, when we return, map number 4.
For our first time in the fall series, we get to see a map of Push, and Revival pretty happy about that one. They need this map of Push if they want to extend this series and get their fall series started off on the right note. FM having a couple solid maps back to back. playing a Winston composition, which is something we haven't seen any other team even vaguely think about attempting.
I think we did see Winston on New Junk City yesterday.
Wasn't that just for a touch?
It
or something?
was a little bit. There was an actual fight that went on.
It was pretty brief.
But it wasn't as effective. I will say though, there is something to be said for comfort over ideal,
That's true.
right? And it does feel but clearly that FM's players are much more comfortable on this mobility. I think there is some element of that they've experienced that. So we got to look at where we're headed to for map number 4, Coliseo, where the players that are on FM, they made their come up in metas where it was this Winston, this hybrid rush dive kind of thing that's been going on. So maybe it's just familiarity, and we've seen how well teams who play to their strengths can succeed.
Yeah, I think this is a great pick here for FM, right? Of the 3 push maps currently in Overwatch, Coliseo is definitely the most uncomfortable to try and run Winston on. Not unplayable by any stretch of the imagination, especially when you get past the long corridor, right? And you start working with some of that high ground, Winston becomes pretty usable. But in that corridor, where a lot of the fighting takes place on this map, it's not super fun to play against Zarya. I will
also say though that something that Revival needs to kind of identify for themselves is they can't take as much free damage as they've been as they took on New Junk City. Because something that's been happening in both maps where the Winston has been played is that Ruler is using both bubbles almost instantly and then just has nothing, right? Is a vulnerable target, and more critically, is not just a vulnerable target himself, his team is also vulnerable at that aspect. And if you're going to be dumping the bubbles that quickly, you need to be at 100 energy, you need to be a big threat on the map to prevent people from kind of diving down and pressuring you because those cooldowns no longer are available.
One more chance for Revival to start their season off on a positive note against a team with quite a bit of experience. FM, Docs make their way to the objective a little bit faster, but I mean, it doesn't really get you much here, not against a Zarya composition. And the question I have is, how well is the staging on the side going to go? Windy and Fiesta versus presumably Scarlet and Slime. Scarlet and Slime with the help of Docs, taking a bit of a better end of that one. But this is going to be a lot of poking and prodding, or maybe not so much poking and prodding. One nice shot. Gurio gets it done. Says, hey guys, I don't like this part of the map.
Cannot be hovering around here for Revival. Any further pickoffs would be, I mean, then FM would be flirting with a checkpoint, right?
Late attacker too. FM are taking no prisoners now. They've been looking more and more clean throughout this entire series.
Confidence is a double-edged sword, right? And on this particular end of it, though, FM it's a very positive play that they're using to cut down Revival.
A double-edged sword is only a problem if the sword gets kicked back at you. Right now, Revival are having a hard time even so much as blocking it, much less parrying fully. Docs will get parried back, though. He will have to disengage, take a quick short
But the amount of damage, that FM has been dealing means that they are actually going to be well ahead in terms of resources. Look, I mean, Kitsune Rush is already up.
Oh, 9. Yeah, that's deadly. Oh, especially with this positioning. Revival, they're caught in a blender. Oh, man. Just no chance. Not in that position. They're completely wiped. I don't think they've gotten an elim yet.
No, they have not. All right, and that's checkpoint. That is checkpoint. We still have 8 minutes left, by the way.
We might not have 8 minutes left if you catch my drift, LaFon.
It's because Revival will make a comeback, I believe.
Yeah, they're gonna win every fight from here on out, bet. No, not so much, especially with Docs not giving him any room to breathe. Beautiful juggle here. Nice mechanics on this Winston that we haven't really seen much of. The beat forced out so far away. At least Hofak will make it worthwhile. Gurio and KHD falling means FM won't get much more progress now. But with the checkpoint unlocked, that forward respawn, Revival have a long way to go.
I actually really like that fight from Revival. It is the first competent, confident fight that we've gotten from Revival since Midtown. Since Midtown defense that they operated. That sound barrier was actually really well timed from Fiesta. They entirely nullified the Primal Rage and then used the sound barrier to aggress instead.
They don't have much to deal with Scarlet's feet, though, and Gurio even pulling out the overclock. Him and Hofak dueling. Gurio having to slide away, though. His team not in a position to really step him up for that one, so loses a lot of space and isn't able to find the enemy Sojourn. You can see Gurio really wants to take down Hofak. He is lasered in on that 1v1 a lot of the time. Rival making some slow progress. Where is their opening? Doc's pretty low, but that's not anything they can take advantage of. Slime still holding onto a beat. Scarlet does get pushed off the flank. Windy with a wild blade here I guess was trying to 1v1 Scarlet. Scarlet pulls out his own sword though and cuts down the enemy Genji. Pushes forward and Revival is sent packing. No, not another late grab. Oh, wait, yes, another late grab. I may have spoke too soon. That's a lot of cards Ruler's carrying. And you know what? That one's on me, Ruler. That one's on me.
Unfamiliar with his game. That was a really great read by Ruler, actually. What happens there is that they're trying to handshake, right? They're at a bit of a stalemate because everyone knows that the blade and then the beat and grab are the only ultimates available. So the play that needs to happen is that the blade, Scarlet's blade is going to be countered by the grab, so he can't go too fast. But they're waiting for Slime to use beat. So Windy is literally just a bait in that last one to try and get that handshake. It's not enough to generate much further of a lead, but at least they've made genuine progress. And now reset back to the center. The Zarya is back in a position of strength.
Reset back to the center, though, means Revival still have quite a ways to go. Potentially 2 more fights to try and win here. An ult advantage for them. Both support ults up, and not much for FM. You can see Scarlet Gurio already feeling the heat. They gotta back out. Dox now has to deal with the Kitsune Rush alone. He's completely cornered. The jump doesn't get him out of danger. No, not a chance. Windy now chasing for more. Gurio in his sights. Will slide away to safety for a moment. Can Revival pick up any of these stragglers? That would be huge if they could. Already one down, and now Ruler's cutting off the retreating angle. Gurio lasered away, and Revival finally have some solid momentum.
And here's where that second edge comes into play. The confidence has been turned on by Revival. This is a much more aggressive team. They're no longer playing scared of FM. And here's where the Winston has finally started to struggle. Getting kited out into the open takes so much poke damage, and there's no way for Slime and KHG to keep up with the amount of AoE damage Revival can do.
Doc's trying to dive past Ruler here, but an easy disengage from Revival. They hardly feel pressured by it at all. They've gotten a checkpoint all the while, and will throw in a sound barrier before FM have a chance to even think about one of their own. Not much out of that sound barrier, though. Revival, they stick around, but they've still yet to catch up in progress. Still need 10 more meters. Windy pretty low. That grab, no one can really follow up on it, except for Hofak just barely getting one, but a bubble buffers the rest of the damage. Now Hofak with an overclock, trying to lay FM to rest, but it's hard to do so through a sound barrier. Everyone's throwing everything at this fight because it's what might determine the game. 4 minutes left, and FM will send Revival packing.
You're hoping that Ruler gets an elimination here. No, he's not going to. Okay, this is really disastrous because... Correction. I actually think there was a little... So, outside that whole skirmish that was kind of happening the entire time, there was a subplot that was happening with the bot being stolen. However, it actually went almost into Revival's territory. However, it was, in fact, returned. So, despite FM making that steal play and winning the fight, they're actually reset back to the center, and Revival are right back in the thick of things.
FM are okay with this, though. They still have that lead, if only narrowly. Gurio throwing out the overclock. Not content with just waiting and biding their time in the middle of the map. They want to push further, put the pressure on. Ruler already down, and the rest of Revival down the horn of retreat. They don't want to be anywhere near here, but Gurio's not giving them a chance. They're all going to get staggered. I mean, a blade out, too. This is brutality at work.
I mean, the fact that you're getting this staggered and you actually get the blade out means that this is not done and dusted. This is going to be significant progress earned, yes, for FM, but now Revival can actually be a little bit more judicious on their approach. They know there are no damage utilities.
FM charging forward with the Kitsune Rush. It does pull one, I'll make it two. The blade out now, but Windy, why are you going for the Winston? I mean, he's trying to keep the rest of FM back now, but FM, again, they're the ones still with a lead. They don't need to win these fights, just lose slowly with 2 minutes, 30 seconds left on the clock. They'll just reset.
Keep in mind, there is still forward spawns for FM, so despite Scarlet being eliminated here, he's going to actually be in the fight when the bot moves in close to him. And Revival are not taking advantage of their temporary player, their player up, so the bot has actually not forced bad positioning from FM in the slightest.
Packed to even Stevens in the center of Coliseo.
I mean, FM, the play for FM here is have Docs take aggro, get primal, and then just play for the beat later.
I mean, there he goes already. The grab gets used. Slime goes down, not targeting the Winston, not trying to give him an opportunity to pop a primal, but Scarlet, through all of that, somehow gets Ruler. I mean, Revival, they'd be lucky to even hold on to the middle of the map at this point. Docs knows he can push forward, take all this space away, and pick up these stragglers too if he wants. Hofak, a beat, and an overclock too. Revival trying to turn this around, punishing FM for just the slightest overextension of 4v4. It should have been comfortable, but FM get wiped away.
I mean, the problem is that we are in essentially last fight. Ruler has made a desperate swap to the Doomfist.
Had to get back.
And they have they spent every ult to win that 4v4, right? And now FM in what is going to be the last fight, the last meaningful fight of this map. They have every ult that they could need. Actually, they will have all 5.
Beyond perfection is required from Revival. Docs splitting Revival already. Ruler and Fiesta. Oh, Fiesta! He's not throwing a party, I'll tell you that much.
That being said, they did just essentially let the Kitsune Rush get nothing. Right, so with Fiesta being able to forward spawn once more, I mean, Kitsune Rush and Blade.
Such a deficit. And Docs isn't afraid to push Revival to their limits. Overclock out now. Gurio is stunned up. The Doomfist doing what it can to get rid of that danger coming out from one of the most experienced players in the lobby. Windy low, he needs this Blade. He needs to survive. Here comes a Primal, here comes an enemy Blade. Scarlet looking for a target, but has used his dash already. Hofak falls though, and that means Revival, they don't have much of a chance. 17 seconds for them to try and survive or reset or get something to their name.
I mean, it's now desperation. It is going to have to be scrappy from Revival from here on out. And I mean, they still don't have what it takes to punch through. Just waiting for Windy to return, the spell barrier in response.
At least the bots push to them, which is bittersweet. They'll get a touch, but now they have to push the bot so far away. A Blade already used. A Suzu gets Gurio out. Lickety split. And Scarlet doesn't need a Blade. Dash resets going through. And FM, it was competitive, but they will manage to win their first series of the fall series here in Contenders Korea 3-1.
And they have made the Winston look pretty strong here. Just an up-tempo style, not allowing their opponents any time to react. And I mean, what a showcase indeed. I think the biggest highlight, though, has to be the team coordination, how well everyone followed up on those dives. Never was Docs isolated, but Scarlet was there to back him up. So I think that this one here for FM, is it the most optimal composition in this current patch? No. Are they going to give teams a lot of trouble anyway? I do think that is the case, and FM have put a bunch of players on notice, a bunch of teams on notice with how well they took down Revival in this one.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, there's something to be said for comfort, especially as a meta settles, right? Sure, everybody can race to try and figure out the Zarya composition and do that the best, but at least here in the group stage, at least for now, if you know your Winston comp better than the other team knows the Zarya comp, you can manage to pull that through. FM proved that today against Revival. Shout out to Revival. I was actually fairly impressed with a lot of the plays that they were going for. They were up against a very experienced team, and that experience shined so bright for FM. So many moments where a lot of teams, you know, a lot of these teams coming up from the WGG Opens might not have made those calls, might not have won those fights, but FM, they get it done in no short part due to our player of the match, Scarlet. Guy was very consistent, very deadly on the Genji all day.
I mean, just look at the type target isolation here, and recognizing that he doesn't have to play down, like, you know, on to when someone has a guaranteed elimination, play for the better play, and just overall a menace.
That plays tasty too. That one. Delicious it is.
I think
him and Gurio working together really well too. I mean, I would argue Scarlet was maybe the more consistent of the two, and I also really high highs throughout the series. But Gurio got a lot of critical picks. Scarlet, though, I mean, look at this. Well, the way he dances around Windy, that's just
the other thing too is the adjustment made, right? The Blades we saw in Midtown and earlier just weren't finding value because of the bubble, you know, utilization. Instead, has made the adjustment now where putting down pressure in the neutral, then going in with the with the Dragon Blade after everything is expired. And I mean, that's a large part of why this Winston is able to work, because of the pressure that Scarlet can apply the rest of the time. So overall, just I think a tremendous performance throughout the day and a huge part of their 3-1 victory.
I'm glad we finally got a 3-1. Maybe tomorrow, well, dare I say, get a 3-2. We have plenty of games tomorrow. These games today were pretty fun in their own right. We've learned a lot in these first 2 days about a bunch of teams and a lot of players that we didn't necessarily have experience with. Some we did have a lot of experience with, but some questions about too, right? I mean, you talk about guys like Gurio and Slime. Gurio was on the Dallas Fuel last year when they won the Overwatch League, but didn't have much success earlier in Contenders this year. And Slime has been bouncing around Contenders for a while. And I mean, he's always looked solid, but can this be the time where FM, Gurio, Slime, Doc, Scarlet, KHD, can they actually push for the upper echelons of Contenders? They're starting in the upper echelons of their group at the very least, just behind Poker Face, who got a solid 3-0 yesterday. On the other side of things, we still need to see SPG and Euphoria, previously known as Rhodes, our two teams returning from the knockouts. But the rest of the teams, I mean, Dreamers and JNGK are at least having fun.
Well, that's gonna be shaping up to see what's gonna happen tomorrow, right? 3 games indeed, and I mean, hey, look, the supposed favorite of Group A makes the opens up the day for us, right? They look so dominant in that first game against Panthera of all teams, right? And that actually, that bookends our day with Panthera taking on Zero. We had a lot of questions.
These games are actually all bangers. Hold on. We've got Poker Face versus FM, the two teams currently leading Group A, admittedly after only 1 game. But still, you get to see Poker Face try and take down a pretty experienced WDG Open team. Then we've got 2 knockout teams coming back playing against each other, and then you have Panthera, a knockout team that really struggled against Poker Face, going up against Zero, the winners of the WDG Open, who have been grinding and trying to get better. One of the teams we expect to be really taking it to those teams coming back from the Overwatch League knockouts. That's just straight up hits tomorrow.
And I mean, the other thing to note too is, like, after today where we got to see FM play a Winston comp and succeed, Panthera, you have to question, right? They played a very awkward look in that first game. A lot of Doomfist, some Wrecking Ball. It did not look good. Do they take
Winston
notes?
Too.
Yep, a little bit of Winston.
They were the other team to try Winston, but Arpen, it was very brief. He didn't have nearly as much success on it.
So the question is, do they take notice from what FM were able to do today, grind it out and make sure just to play to their own style, or do they, acquiesce to the whims of the meta and try and play back into a Zarya composition? All that and more, right? That's our last game. There's so much more throughout the rest of the day, and I mean, just a fantastic slate.
I'm super excited for I almost said Rhodes. Euphoria versus Simprissa Gaming game, right? Both teams who made it to the Overwatch League knockouts and didn't get nearly as much done as they were hoping to, right? I mean, making it there is an accomplishment in and of its own right. Don't get me wrong, I'm proud of them, but I don't know if they're going to be too happy with how that ended for them. I believe, actually, only SPG got to even play an Overwatch League team actually in the knockout stage, if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head. So both of these teams coming back to Contenders now, Euphoria and Rhodes, even with both teams, or I said Euphoria and Rhodes, Euphoria and SPG, both of these teams are going to want to change the narrative from, oh no, we didn't do well in knockouts, to, oh, we're gonna dominate Contenders now.
Yeah, and that's and there's, I mean, speaking of young players too, right? A couple of really bright up and comers stepping in. Overall, a fantastic day today. A little bit closer in one of those games, even with that 3-0 to open things up. But when we return tomorrow, even more action from Contenders Korea. It's going to be a good one.
It's going to be a very exciting day. We'll catch you all here in just under 24 hours for more Contenders Korea Fall Series.